On today's Laguna Woods Stories, we meet a truly funny man, Phil Doran, a Hollywood comedy writer and producer. Oh, we're very delighted to have in studio today Phil Doran. And Phil is well known here in the community. You're involved in, besides being involved in the video club, you're involved in several clubs here at Laguna Woods Village. How long have you lived in the village?
I've been here 15 years.
Wow.
And it has gone by so fast. It's just amazing. I've been here so long, I was actually young when I moved in here. And people would say to me, "Are you old enough to live here?" And I was very flattered. Then after 2 years, nobody ever asked me that.
They don't
again.
ask you.
I never hear that again. No.
Nobody has ever asked me.
It's really been good living here, and it's a wonderful world. It's a summer camp for the elderly. I mean, whatever there is you want to do, you can do. If they can't find it, you can invent it.
Right.
250 clubs.
Well, you pretty much have invented a number of things here.
Well, I think invented or sort of discovered them or reinvented myself through them. I mean, before I didn't even know there was a video club, and I was wandering around here somewhere, and I walked in, and here's a fully functioning, sophisticated studio with wonderful equipment. And as you know, a TV studio is just about the best toy you could ever give a little kid. So.
Now you had a whole career in Hollywood in the television and film industry. We'll get to that in a few moments. And you have been the catalyst, the leader to do a number of things here at Laguna Woods Village. We'll get to that as well. Well, where did you start? Where did you start this voyage?
I said I was always writing something, and I was sort of attracted to that and that kind of life. And I didn't even know what I was going to do major in so much in college. I had a number of majors, but I guess I wound up as an English major, which prepares you actually for nothing, other than teaching or whatever.
Everything and nothing. Right?
Everything and nothing, exactly. So I graduated from college in 1965, and it was just by sheer dumb luck. It was the coming of the 60s. It was Carnaby Street. It was the Beatles. It was the youth movement. So I job hunted in Chicago and wound up working as a copywriter in a big Chicago advertising agency.
In Chicago, it would almost have to be an advertising agency.
Yes, it was. And I got the job. I walked in for the interview. I was wearing a cantaloupe-colored Edwardian suit, hair down the here, and little granny glasses. So they must have thought anyone who walks around looking like that has got to know something. So they hired me to write for the youth market accounts.
They admired you for your courage and not your taste, right?
Yes, absolutely. But I did that for about 2 years. I worked at North Advertising, and it was very instructional because you really learned how to work the language, how to make out of copy. Every word is precious. How to make every word relate to the next word and advance the reader and keep them, there's some wonderfully good writers working in advertising because they're very
in advertising, you don't have the option of writing a 500-page novel. You've got to write a 30-second commercial.
So anyway, after about a couple of years, I wondered if I could write something longer than a minute. So I had some vacation time coming, so I went to California, and I decided, California, my God, this is amazing. The culture and the climate and the women and everything. This is it. This is my spiritual homeland.
And you and thousands of other people come out of here every year with stars in your eyes and all that. But you somehow made it. I looked you up on IMDb, 4 or 5 pages here of stuff. How did you get started?
Good. And my first job, I walked into Chuck Barris's office. And I just said, "Hi, I'm wearing a suit. Everybody else is in jeans and T-shirts, everything." Yeah. And I said, "I just have to work for you. I think you're just great." And he hired me. Wow. And I became an associate producer on The Dating Game.
No kidding.
I did that for 2-3 years.
So your first big thing in Hollywood was The Dating Game.
Yeah, I guess that was. That was my first TV credit.
And you have adapted the Dating Game to an effort that many of our viewers have seen here.
That's right.
So how did that come about?
It's the funniest way, because when I first came here, by the time I really got to know the video club and what they were about, a lot of people were talking about, we really should do a comedy about life in the village. And I thought, well, the thing was, doing a sitcom is really, really difficult, really hard. You need a crack writing staff, you need a director who knows how to shoot comedy. Making it come together is almost impossible, even under the best of circumstances. So I said, but it is doable. what's doable is the fact that, well, at that time too, I became recently widowed, and after some period of getting through that, and discovered there's a very, very vibrant single scene here. When I saw that, I sort of put two and two together, that there's maybe 6 or 7 guys for every eligible woman in this thing, maybe even more. And I said, this is a perfect thing to
Are you saying that the right way around? 6 or 7 guys for every
No, I'm sorry, 6 or 7. I think it's wrong.
I think that some were begging to differ with you there.
Yeah, that's Fire Island. I'm sorry, I had the wrong geography here. Anyway, but there's a vibrant dating culture. There's a lot of people going out, elderly single people getting it on, if I may say so. So I decided, the dating game would really work here. An elderly version of the dating game would work here. So we got together some people, Ellen Van Houten and Edie Bowles and a number of other people. We formed a group, and we began doing contestant run-throughs and casting calls. And a lot of people showed up to want to be in the game. We played mock versions of the game. Yeah. We picked the contestants we want. We wrote the questions. And to me, all the questions had to be something inherently funny. Something about aging, something about our generation.
Right. So the place of a writer in a show like that is to try to frame a question in a way that it gives the contestant an opportunity to say something funny.
To be funny, that's right.
That's quite an art, isn't it?
It is. The classic question we wrote was, the Bachelor says to Bachelorette number 1, describe the sound you make when you get up off the couch. Now, there's really nothing she can say that isn't funny.
Right.
So that's like the foolproof joke. But so that was fun. But after working on a dating game, the show that taped right next door to us was the Joey Bishop show. So I don't know. I would run into Joey Bishop and I would tell him a joke, and he would say, "Get away from me." And he was a tough guy. But I just kept at it. I kept saying, and I'd tell him another joke. He says, it's all better, So finally, I turned in a whole page of jokes for him. And I didn't hear from him for weeks and weeks. Wow. So I just walked over into his office. And he looked at me like I had just broken and entered into his bedroom or something. But he looked. I said, I gave you these jokes. Did you read them? Did you look at them? Whatever. So he looks at them and he says, they're not good. They're not bad. I'll tell you what. I'll give you 2 weeks. Oh. So he hired me for 2 weeks, and I became a monologue writer for him.
Okay.
And Joey did a monologue. This is the time we were on opposite Johnny Carson, so not a lot of people were watching us, but we had a full-fledged 90-minute talk show. Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra and Peter Lawford, the Rat Pack, were always on it, and big stars and everything. And
so you were. Did you say a monologue writer?
I was. I was the monologue writer.
You were the monologue writer. Oh my goodness.
Because the last 2 just got fired. That's kind of why he hired me. He went through writers like Donald Trump goes through communication directors. It was, So again, I learned. I have to say one thing. Joey knew joke construction. And I would write these jokes. I'd write 4 or 5 pages of jokes, single-spaced, every day, and I would give it to him. And it would come back to me with marks on it. Reverse this word. Don't use this word. Say that. He would give me grammatical corrections on how to sharpen the joke and make sure that the hits the punchline at the right point. Right. And I really learned joke writing from him. Oh. And I did that show for 2 years, and the show got canceled. And on the show, I met a guy who was a talent coordinator. His name was Doug, and he was very, very funny. He was hysterical. And so we said, and a lot of comedy in show business is team written by teams. It just seems like...
We all know that from the Dick Van Dyke Show.
Exactly. And it's funny, when I was growing up, when I was in college, I watched that show, and I wanted to be him. I wanted to be that job. That was the funny thing.
There you are.
Yeah, there I am. And I want to be married to Mary Tyler Moore, incidentally.
Yeah.
With that also.
I think all of us have that fantasy.
Yeah. So anyway, Doug and I got together, and we just started writing little sketches. And I must say, we were good from the get-go. We were getting interest. We were getting some script offers. We were getting interviews and stuff like that. And we wound up on staff writer of the Tim Conway Comedy Hour on CBS. And that was a very well-regarded but not very well-watched show that didn't last very long. But from that credit, we sort of sprang to other things. We did Carol Burnett. We did the thing on the Smothers Brothers. We did, not the real show, but another show they had afterwards. And from there, then we did, let's see, Tony Orlando and Dawn. We did that variety show. So we did variety shows for about 4 or 5 years. And so we're working on this variety show, and I get a call from a guy that we knew from the first show we were on, from Tim Conway. He had hired us. And he says, guys, I'm over here working for Norman Lear on one of his shows, and I'm just drowning. I can't find anybody I can write anything funny, and I know you guys can do funny. Would you do a script for us? Would we?
Would we?
Well, we're jumping out of our skin. So we're start working on ideas, and let's do this, and we're writing this, and we're working we're working on a show at the same time. So we're trying to do both. And so we finally put together like what we think are some really great ideas. So we go over to they were at Paramount, went over to Paramount Studios and to see him, and we show up and we say, we're here to see Ron Clark. And the secretary says, well, Ron Clark was fired 2 weeks ago. So we looked so crushed and everything. She says, well, she was a little flustered. She says, I'll tell you what, if you hang around here, let me see what I can do. So about 20 minutes later, she comes out. She says, Rod Parker will see you. Now, Rod Parker was a serious heavyweight. He was one of the producers of Maude. So this was like, we're in the big leagues here. So he says, come on in. So we get in there, and Doug and I, we're dancing our tits off. We're doing every joke we know, and we're da-da-da-da, and we're really giving him the full pressure thing. And he's sitting there, and I swear to God, he's staring at us like a grave digger. Like one of these things that I'm like, oh my God, we're dying, you know. So finally at the end of it, he says, well, I don't know. He says, you had part of a story that you pitched might work with something we have. I'll tell you what, we'll put it together, and you guys will write the script. Yes, we're writing a script. So this is a big leap up from a variety show joke gag writers to a script writer. So Doug and I are working days and night, and we're doing this, we're doing the show we're on, and so we finally finish the script, we send it in to them. So 2-3 days later, we get a call, we say, we love the script, it's great, we're shooting it next week. You guys, this is just getting better and better. So we show up at the taping, and if you've ever been to a sitcom taping, you know that there's a bleacher section, there's cameras and microphones in front, and the set is out there. And we're sitting in the audience. We've got friends, girlfriends, boyfriends, drug dealers, everybody we know we brought to the thing. And so Norman Lear himself comes out to do the warm-up. And I have to say, when Norman speaks, it's like the birds fall out of the trees. He's so charming and everything. So he says, tonight, ladies and gentlemen, the 2 young men who wrote this script are sitting here in our audience. They've given us a wonderful script. And Doug and Phil stand up, and I stand up, and the people are applauding. And I'm thinking, I could die right now, because my life is never going to get better than this moment right here. So we sit down, the lights go off, the cameras light up, and they start the show. And we're sitting there, and I'm watching the show, and Doug's watching the show. And I'm thinking, do you remember this line? Do you remember this? I don't recognize anything that they're doing. This is like going on, and maybe like 5 minutes later, okay, wait, I think that was one of our lines. The script was totally 80-90% changed. Okay? So then...
But was it good? Did you get credit?
Well, the audience liked it. Yeah, the audience liked it. It was funny. It was better. I would say it was better.
Okay.
So so we're about to leave, and we're both dazed, and Norman's going, boys, come down here. So we come down and he says, guys, you did such a great job. We're going to give you 2 more scripts. And I'm thinking, God, what kind of a rabbit hole did I fall into? This makes no sense whatsoever. You turn in something, it's changed completely, and they liked it. The truth is, what you don't know, and what you can't know until you're in the system, is the minute a script is commissioned to go, it's being worked on constantly, rewritten, revised, shortened, different elements. Things are in play at the same time. The network suddenly says, we want you to do a thing with a fireman or something. Things pop in that you have no control. So it's really, it's a moving
So you have network people saying they like this, they don't like that.
Studio people,
and
network
I know
people.
Typically they tape them twice and they change the script between the 2 tapings.
They do, yeah, that often happens. And listen, all I can say is what turned out got better, and what we didn't know is the amount of rewriting and just the amount of work that goes into it up until it's finally shot, even the moment it's shot. They're changing things. So After that, Norman called us, and he asked us if we wanted to be on All in the Family.
Whoa.
Well, okay, if you insist, you know.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So we were on 2 seasons on that show, and that show was both the greatest and the hardest thing I've ever done. It really was. It was indescribably hard because it was first of all, the standards were so high. There was no way any show could compete with us. We were number 1, wire to wire, every week of both seasons I was on. But the show was in its 6th and 7th year. And what the worst fear is that people would say, well, in a show it's not as good as it was in the 3rd year or the 2nd year, which happens because a show goes on. They get the low-hanging fruit in the first years. They do the best, most obvious stories. And towards the end, now you're changing the formula and you're bringing in new people and stuff like that. So it often isn't as good. So, the other part of it was that the actors were so entrenched in their characters and were such big stars, it was really hard to disagree with anything that they wanted to do, even when they were wrong. And they were wrong. But what can you do? And there were a lot of geniuses in the show. Norman Lear was a genius, and Bud Yorkin was a genius, and Paul Bogart, who had directed all the episodes.
So you were one of how many writers on the show?
There were 12, but one died. One, I don't know what happened to him. We were down to 9. But we did nothing but write. Doug and I were shoveling coal in the furnace. That's all we did. We were just shoveling jokes in there. Yeah. We would get scripts in the morning. We would get revisions to make, and they'd give us a scene. And I'm sitting here and I'm saying, well, here's the thing. Here's Norman Lear's notes. Here's CBS's notes. Here's Carol O'Connor's notes. They all say something different. But I have to put the scene together, include everything, and oh yeah, don't forget to make it funny. So it was hard. That was hard of it. And a lot of time was the immensity. You know, we had a regular, week to week, we had 42 million people watch the show every single week. Wow. And I would get in the office in the morning and look at the blank paper and say, like, what do I have to say to 42 million people? I have no idea.
How do you bring that down to where you can be funny to ordinary people?
I think you have to personalize it. At least that's how it would have worked for me. I somewhere along the line realized that I think that I'm normal enough that if I think something is funny, you'll think it is too. If I think something's interesting, so will you. So essentially, well, I write to what makes me laugh.
Right.
And I was blessed to have a partner who was hysterically funny. We used to make each other laugh, and then we'd start writing.
Did you start out life being funny? Did you make people laugh in kindergarten?
Yes, I was the funny kid. I could make adults laugh, but not with stupid kid stuff. I would say precocious things.
Okay.
And I realized it was and I would keep bullies from beating me up if I made them laugh.
Can you learn to be funny?
I think you can learn to be funnier. I do, but I think there's a certain mind bend that you have that you just see things in a funny way, and it's almost automatic. I don't know. Sometimes things come out. I don't know how it got there, but something struck me as funny. So,
Were there techniques that you used to come up with funny situations?
Well, there are standard techniques. You know, the jealousy. You know, it goes back to human frailty. Anytime you're working people's frailty, you're going to find something funny. Jack Benny made a 50-year career out of the fact that he was cheap, that he was, that he
was getting older.
Getting older, didn't want to admit it, and this and that. And he thought he was a great violinist. All these things, and they played that for years.
Yeah, it was one gag with 1,000 variations.
That's right.
Or something.
They never got tired of it. You know, first of all, he was a consummate actor. When he acted that joke, he would take a pause that would last forever, and the audience was laughing even before they heard the joke, the line, because they know, they trusted him.
Well, I as I said earlier, I printed out IMDb on you, and I learned from this that you were a producer on something like 10 different series. What do producers do?
The basic structure is, at the top of the show is what they call the executive producer. And in television is a writer-driven media. So the executive producers are the head writers. They're the ones who came up like Doug and I did, out of the boiler room, out of the storyboard.
Somewhere you must have had a disaster or two. Did you have any spectacular failures you're going to share?
Yeah, I think so. Let's see, do I want to share them? Okay. Well, probably the funniest disaster was Doug and I were asked to write the AIDS telethon thing, the AIDS award banquet. And this was at a very important time because Rock Hudson was dying, and it was when AIDS was first coming attention to Hollywood, and Hollywood was really embracing
just rife with opportunities for
for
saying
comedy,
something slightly wrong.
Exactly.
Yes.
So it was being hosted by Elizabeth Taylor. Okay, and it included every major star in Hollywood was taking part. So Doug and I were writing it. So we're assembling this thing, and it's an enormous show, 3 hours long, with all kinds of talent and everything. So we literally had to do kind of like little monologues and intros and extras to all the people. And we're writing and writing, and the stack of cards is getting higher and higher. And we have never heard word from Elizabeth Taylor.
Wow.
Not from her, not from her people.
Wow.
And it's getting like a week away.
Scary.
So we said, well, all right, she's a pro. It'll be okay. So it's fine. So days pass, and I'm calling the agent and the manager. Well, Elizabeth's in Tibet. She's with the Punjab, and she's with the Dalai Lama and everything like this. And these people operate in an atmosphere we don't. They operate on a planet that never touches us. So the day of the show, okay, still no Liz. The whole day, makeup people, everybody's waiting around.
Oh my.
Suddenly in comes a cluster of people, like 20 people, makeup people, aides, chauffeurs, bodyguards, whatever. In the middle of it is this little tiny Jewish woman on 5-inch spikes carrying a poodle and smoking a cigarette in a cigarette holder.
Oh, my.
And so Doug and I waded through the thing, and we say, Miss Taylor, we have to talk to you. We have to talk to you about the script. We have to talk to you about what you're going to say. Oh, darling, okay, of course. We go to her bedroom, and her dressing room, and now there's like 400 people in there, and I'm trying to get her attention. And she says, oh, yes, I'll do this. That's be fine. And then she walks off, and she's dropping cards. And I'm saying, I'm saying to Doug, this is going to be an unalloyed disaster in front of everybody in Hollywood. We will never be able to work here again.
Was this televised?
It was live. It was televised. It was live.
Live. Oh my.
So she came out, and again, she staggered over. She was staggering around, and she was dropping cards and getting people's names wrong. But the truth was, there was so much love going on, and they love her so much, it just didn't matter. It just didn't matter. Wow. It was great. So I'm back in my office, and the secretary comes in the door, and she says, Robert Wagner is calling you. I said, me? So pick up the phone. I says, hello, RJ? He says, boys, he said, I ran into Liz Taylor the other day, and I said, Liz, you were so fabulous at that thing. I couldn't believe it. She says, it's not me. I got these 2 writers, and they're great.
How many of your words did she actually say?
Who knows? I lost count. I think I got drunk that night. I couldn't remember what it said.
What was your favorite show to work on?
Favorite show? Well, I think I liked the variety shows. They were good. They were like a big Broadway show opening every week. Tony Orlando was a good show. He had Jackie Gleason on, and really legendary, people that you'd meet. You hung out with them. You were there with them and stuff like that. It was fun. They were all good. When I think about it, even the bad ones were good. Some of the shows were terrible. I mean, in terms of Who's the Boss? Tony Danza was. When he was like the little girl with the curl. When he was good, he was really good, but when he was not. But I don't know. They're all. You have to put yourself in their place. It's their face on the TV. It's their name on the show. Yeah. And if everything goes wrong, we go on to other shows, but they're stuck. But they did a bad show.
Because they still have the same face.
They still have the same face. That's true. So you got to be sensitive to that.
Any stories of people who were wonderful to work with or horrible to work with?
Well, probably the most interesting show backstage was Red Fox.
Really?
Red Fox. I don't know. The backstage thing that was going on backstage was absolutely unbelievable. He had there was always guys coming in with bags of drugs, bags of money, guns, There was his ex-wife, a Korean woman, who kept jumping out of the shadows with a knife to kill him. The Ku Klux,
literally.
not let her in. If you see her, call the security.
Oh.
The Ku Klux Klan burned down his house.
Oh.
And no one would know where he wouldn't tell anyone where he was, including us. And we're doing a show with him.
Wow.
But I suppose he was more than a little paranoid. And one time we're doing a table reading of a show, and the actors are sitting on one side and the writers are sitting on the other side, meaning the blacks are over here and the Jews are over here. And we're reading the script, and one of these guys' guns fell out of his belt and we all dived under the table. No, don't kill me.
Oh, wow.
It was never a dull moment.
And you said the blacks are on one side and
The actors.
the Jews on the other side. The writers are all Jews, I presume.
Oh, yeah.
Why is it that so many, a huge percentage of Hollywood writers are Jews?
I think it comes from back in the turn of the 19th century, the 20th century, when the immigration of Jews and Irish and Italians really was in number. And there were just a lot of jobs Jews couldn't have. And they couldn't get into banking. They couldn't get into government work. They couldn't get into advertising. Really, that was a very waspish thing, unless you were a copywriter. So they bought movie studios. I mean, the interesting thing is all of the seven big movie studios that are around, Columbia and Warner Brothers and MGM, are all founded by men who grew up in the Ukraine, in little towns maybe less than 100 miles from each other.
No kidding.
Yeah. They came here, and they came to America. They made money at one thing, and they decided they wanted to go in the movie business. And the Jews literally created the dream factories of Hollywood.
And I remember that they started out in New York, but got into trouble with Edison over patents and that sort of thing. So they came out to Hollywood to get away from Edison.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right. Go to California. We got the sun. We don't need the light.
Right.
Let's go there.
Yeah, back in those days, they needed the sun. The film wasn't sensitive enough. They had to shoot it outside.
It's true. So it's been a great life. Having fun.
What's next?
I don't have another thing. I don't feel I have to climb another mountain. If something happens that interests me, I'll, entertain it. But enjoying my kids, my grandchild, living life, living the dream.
Yeah, grandchild changes.
It changes, I know.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so.
Well, you are doing a lot to enrich all of our lives here in Laguna Woods
Thanks very much.
Village. So thanks for being our guest on
My
today's
pleasure.
show.
Thanks for watching. And remember, if you have an interesting story or know someone who does, email us, lagunawoodsstories@gmail.com.